All right, welcome back to FYI, the For Your Institution podcast presented by Mongoose. This episode, we are trying something a little bit different. I'm going to be bringing you conversations that we had at the 2023 NACAC Conference in Baltimore. We'll be going over some topics that the industry is dealing with, and we're going to hear some ways that institutions are handling some of the key challenges that we face today. Before we dive in, let's hear from our guests.
I am Carlos Cano. I'm the Director of Admission Communications and Marketing at Georgian Court University.
My name is Courtney Minden. I am currently the principal of Minden Advisory Group.
I am Dana Lambert. I am a public school counselor at West Milford Township High School in West Milford, New Jersey. I am a past president of NJACAC. I am a college fair chair for NACAC. I am also rolling onto the NACAC Admissions Practices Committee.
I'm Jen Nectarline, college and career counselor at Hunterdon Central Regional High School, which is in central New Jersey.
My name is Kayla Groban with Towson University here in Maryland. I work on our freshman recruitment team.
My name is Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm our Senior Vice President of Enrollment Management and Student Affairs at Iona University up in New Rochelle, New York.
My name is Sarah Smith. I am a school counselor at Triton Regional High School in Runnymede, New Jersey. I am immediate past president of New Jersey ACAC. And I am also the career exploration counselor at my high school, in addition to being a school counselor.
I'm Scott Novak, Chief Development Officer at Carnegie, and I was the founder of Underscore. And we merged with Carnegie back in 2021.
My name is Todd Reinhardt. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment at the University of Denver. In our division at DU, that includes undergraduate admission, which is centralized, and then we have financial aid, which is both undergrad and grad.
My name's Janie Stevens. I'm Associate Director of Recruitment and Events at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City.
And I'm Laura Thomas. I serve as the Director of Admissions at the University of Missouri, Kansas City at UMKC.
All right, now that we have the voices, let's dive into their minds. First up, I want to ask everyone what sorts of challenges they see higher ed facing in their specific roles at this time. It's a topic everyone was eager to weigh in on. And here's what they said.
There's no such thing as being overstaffed right now, but just hearing, in a way, it's crazy because it's kind of refreshing to hear from colleagues that they're going through the same challenges. Sometimes when you're within your own institution, you're within your own office, you feel like you're the only one that's going through something at a certain time. But when you come to a conference like NACAC and you're able to sit in a room in a session that's talking about staffing and it's talking about how do we get the next future leaders and whatnot, it's refreshing to hear that they are going through those same challenges. And then beyond that, kind of the icing on the cake is how they're dealing with it. So being able to then take that information, go back to my campus, work with our team to be able to determine how do we get through this obstacle? How do we get through this hurdle?
I think top of mind is post-COVID as a new normal. What does that mean exactly? In 2019, every college had its challenge and its opportunities. Then we were just sort of thrown into reinvent everything you've ever known or ever believed. You take one of the most extroverted industries out there and turn them into Zoom-bound introverts who have to stay inside while doing virtual sessions and virtual travel, so to speak. And now we're out on the other side of it. And I feel like the challenges are just that much more punctuated. They didn't go away. They almost just kind of grew in scope, particularly around revenue and particularly around financial issues. There are a lot of colleges that are really having a hard time recovering from such a shakeup. And that's where I think the shift from admission to enrollment management has become so pronounced. You know, when I started this career, it was really about in September you traveled, in January you read, in April you had admitted student events, and then the summer was vacation time. And that's a small part of what we do right now. It's meeting with the CFO. It's thinking about whether to increase tuition or whether to keep it flat. It's how much of the international pool is still viable. I was talking to a school yesterday where they're down 25% in China, and that's enough to make a CFO lose sleep at night. And so the good news about that is these are all challenges that with some creativity and with some thinking that goes beyond this is how we did in 2019, we should do it like this now. But it's also punctuating that we came into this business to help students with, but then you're talking about the bottom line all the time. It is a little jarring. For a lot of people, I think it's caused them to leave the industry, to be quite honest. But I see optimism there. I think if we take all we learned from COVID and all that is different now and really just let her rip and just try, if a school is willing to try new things and really do things beyond the pale, beyond the norm, I think there's going to be a renaissance in college admission and not so much that anxiety around enrollment management.
Access is a huge topic right now. The keynote speakers, Dr. Cardona and the governor, certainly addressed it yesterday as different legislation limits access by taking away things like affirmative action, or as states limit rights for LGBTQ people. It's our job and our obligation to how can we support our students, parents, and colleagues in those situations? How can we support our colleagues? We've done in the past a virtual fair for LGBTQ youth. We'll do that again because we have students in other states that can't get that information because of state legislation. So we do it. People can access it. Affirmative action, we're all still figuring out. Like FAFSA, we're all still figuring out. Conversation is key. Yeah. COVID had all of its challenges, and we all know what those challenges were, but there were things that came to light that actually helped us. I mean, I think a lot of us were reticent to do Zoom meetings and virtual meetings, and we realized the doors that's opened up. So committees can be across states, across countries, and still meet and see each other and not just be voices on a phone that cracks and falls apart. We've done so much more virtually. We can do virtual podcasts like this or virtual meetings for teachers that can't get out, counselors more than teachers, but counselors that can't get out, parents that don't have the time to come at night because they work can now access with our fairs. They live live. So someone who couldn't get there or couldn't get to the time can now go back and see the presentations from the colleges in whatever time frame works for them. I know for me as a New Jersey counselor, one of the things I struggle with is schools that don't realize the East Coast starts school later than the rest of the country. So deadlines in September, my students aren't in school. We're not in school. We have nothing ready. And it leads to unnecessary panic if people would just understand. And that's something like the Admissions Practices Committee will talk about. How do we get that message out? How do we communicate? How do we make this better?
Public school counselors have a lot on their mind, but I think obviously, like I said, awareness and advocacy for our profession. There's a lot of talk around things like burnout. To be completely honest with you, I mean, public school counselors are feeling spread more thin than ever. I think a lot of that is post-pandemic, but I think it's just the understanding within our buildings and the understanding amongst administrators of what we really do and all the hats we wear. I think, too, another big theme that we're talking about, and I'm sure will come up tomorrow, is just the complexities around the college admission application process and constantly finding ways for students to get through this with less steps, less confusion, and trying to talk to our partners in higher ed to make this process just a little more streamlined, especially for our first-gen kids who have no idea what they're doing, no support at home. So we talk a lot about that. Ways to ease the process, ways for people to understand what we do and all the hats we wear, finding networking groups within our smaller communities where we may not have a lot of access to PD. So those are some of the bigger things I think that will come up tomorrow.
For our freshman recruitment team, we are really the ones on the ground recruiting, going into these schools each spring, fall, throughout the year, meeting with counselors and students, as well as parents at the college fairs. So really trying just to see what are we doing right now with our recruitment efforts, what's working, what's not working. So going around meeting vendors is great to see what's out there and really just meeting people and seeing what other universities are doing that maybe we should be doing, forward thinking and looking into the future that way. Things that I'm really excited and passionate to learn and looking at some of these sessions that are offered are test optional. I think that's kind of here to stay. Towson went test optional during COVID. We're staying test optional, but really excited to hear a little bit more from professionals about that session and just information to help us review better and be able to talk and counsel students. I think some other bigger topics, athletics for us as well, being a Division I school, looking at how we review those students, kind of equality within the admissions office. Those are all different kind of topics that I'm looking to learn a little bit more about. So it's great to see that those sessions are being offered. And also just really exciting to see folks from all across the country, as well as internationally. I met somebody earlier from Hamilton, Canada, and Ontario here. So really cool just to see everybody connecting during these conferences.
There's a lot of conversation about Supreme Court decisions, right? Everyone's kind of navigating those conversations and topics, trying to figure out how are you adjusting, what are you doing, what changes are you making? A lot of DEI topics of conversation I've seen prevailing. And for the people that have been around long enough like us, the bigger topic is who's still around, right? There's been a lot of transitional times in higher ed, particularly amongst administration. So presidents, VPs of enrollment who are moving out of the industry at pretty quick rate and high turnover. So just a lot of transition in the industry. At Iona, we're an institution where over 40% of our students are first generation. We are almost 50% students of color. We're a very naturally diverse institution. Some of that's given our geographic location. Some of that's just given the access we provide. We're a school that, has a relatively high admit rate. We're not overly selective. So we've been an inclusive institution for years. And I think when a lot of these topics that are posed as problems, they're problems that people allow to become problems for them. They shouldn't be. They're problems of privilege. If you choose to make it a priority, it can still very much be a priority. And, obviously you have to follow the government, right? Follow the law. So everyone's going to do what the law tells us to do, but there's still many ways that you can fully live your university's mission in line with the guidelines that are being set by the federal government.
So obviously the SCOTUS decision is a big hot topic. Digital SAT, test optional. There's a whole bunch of things that are just hot topics around the conference currently. So I think what's really interesting, especially with the SCOTUS decision, is it's different for high school than it is for college. So colleges are trying to figure out ways to adjust with the SCOTUS decision, whereas on the high school side, we're trying to figure out ways to tell our students how they can best put themselves in the best light to get their story out there without having to check the box of what ethnicity they might be. The SCOTUS decision is more like I'm trying to figure out how to guide my students in the best way possible for the college application process. For the digital SAT, it's just brand new. And we were just talking to Rob Brennick this morning, and a lot of my students are running to take the last paper SAT before it moves to digital. And then there are some students who are okay with the move to digital because they've been taking tests online for a long time as well. So there's a lot of different things.
For me, as you know, Student Search as we know it, as a service or an initiative that colleges and universities undertake, is being transformed. I don't think that the old days of buying lists and shooting out emails is really going to be the way in which to engage with prospective students. And there's a lot of new companies that I see here with great new solutions. I want to learn more about that, have that discussion, and see how this is going to change in the coming years. I want to see colleges and universities finding ways to get access to the students without the student having to take as much of a effort or process that they have in the past. The world is different now. There's personal information that can't be necessarily shared as easily it was back in the day when it was just name purchases. So I think that is going to be flipped, and I am very interested to see how that pans out.
Affordability is an issue that we've been talking about for decades. And I think everyone remember when, especially at a private university like DU, but just privates years ago talking, can you imagine when our cost of attendance will hit $30,000 or $50,000? And now many privates are probably at a COA of $80,000 a year. And if you stay on that pace, probably by 2030, we'll probably have at least a sticker price all in $100,000. And in some ways, you might manage it the same way we did when we crossed the threshold of 30,000 and 50,000, and even 80,000 to me is a big threshold too, but it's a complicated business model. And you're seeing some schools freezing their tuition or others doing the tuition resets and others just being more aggressive with their merit and need-based aid and actually just increasing their discount rates. And everyone, I think the trustees at a lot of schools say, is this sustainable? Can you keep raising your price every year? Can you keep raising your discount price every year? The problem is, especially the competition for merit and the expectation of families to receive a merit award, which school is going to pull the plug on that, right? It's one thing to maybe hold off on some of your tuition increases or not do as much on a given year or freeze even for a couple of years. But a lot of the same schools are not pulling their merit back at the same time because in their mind, there's still some type of value around price and reputation and quality, however they interpret that. And I think there's still a psychological factor too that this school wants me. The school that didn't give me merit or give me a lower offer doesn't want me as much. Fine if I come, fine if I don't. And that's the message they're sending versus this school not only admitted me, they'd really want me to be part of their community. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, but I certainly think it's a true factor for a lot of students and their parents. And I think people are used to being rewarded for what they view as their accomplishments. Students view that they worked really hard. They've taken a rigorous curriculum. They've earned excellent grades. And in some ways, it's like when we apply for a job, we expect with our years of experience and our expertise to have a certain level of salary that if the salary was way off, well, we wouldn't even consider the job. And I think in some ways they view their academic record almost as their resume, applying for a job, and that they should command a certain salary in the market.
For me, I would say some of the things that from the conversations I've had, it has been a little bit of nervousness. How do we navigate the challenges that are ahead of us and the unknown? Taking us back into the COVID of what do we do with things that we don't know are going to end up happening coming down the pipeline. But a lot of us are still, as the conference theme is the power of us, is how can we stand by and be proactive in maintaining the things and the visions that we have and the what students expect in higher education and how we really can increase access.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is navigating a little bit of unknown and just trying to make sure we're still serving our purposes and our students the best that we possibly can while navigating a new landscape as far as trying to make sure we are meeting all of the marks. And as a public institution, we are serving with all of our state levels of expectation, but also really still here to serve our population. At UMKC, we're an urban serving university. We're Kansas City's university. We are there to build up and serve our community. So just reestablishing our commitment to them, to our Kansas City area is what we are really focused on.
I know that we're all aware of the enrollment cliff. There are some that think it's fake news or not real. There are those that think it's happening sooner than later. And so for me, it's having conversations with colleagues about how can we be proactive and how can we do things differently to meet students where they are. How can we get them excited about having a college experience and pursuing further than just that bachelor's degree, but going even further than that. So the conversation and looking outside the box has been fun for me.
For me, I think the fact that we're all starting to get on the same page of authenticity, that's been a theme that we have been focused on for years now, but that's really paid off for us as a university and making sure that everything that we do, the decisions that we make are, looking at our students and being authentic and making sure we're really trying to match the right students to the right programs. It's no longer just selling your university to everyone. It's trying to find that right fit and that right student and really trying to work within that space, which is something that we've been focusing on for a while, but I feel like there's a lot more buy-in and authenticity is in the front. And this generation, that's what they need. That's what they want. That's what they expect when they show up on campus.
Okay, so that was a lot. We're going to put a pin in that for now because this is a two-part series. So we'll be coming back in our next episode where our NACAC guests will tell us what they're looking forward to and tell us what the future holds with regards to admissions and higher education. We really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, and we appreciate the time that our guests took to join us from the trade show floor at the 2023 NACAC Conference. You can find the contact information for all of our guests and more in the episode notes. We look forward to seeing you next time here on FYI.